Hey yo, it's Deep Convos with the Meg and Fran. I'm your host, Meg, and I'm with my co-host, Fran. Well, I guess we're equal levels. I shouldn't say co-host.
I
We're
mean,
your
we're both
hosts.
co-hosts.
We're co-hosting each other. Hell yeah.
Okay, no one needs an explainer.
Yeah, welcome to our seventh.
No, it's actually our fifth because the next one we already recorded, but we had to put it off. Remember? So this is technically our fifth. We're putting it out fifth.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
little
so this
inside baseball there, people.
this is our fifth episode. Um, yeah, and we're gonna just talk about what's been going on in the country as of late. And yeah, we're excited to bring our own perspectives into it as Filipino Americans. Since the tragedies that have happened, my sister and I have been, I mean, like everyone else, really taking the time to go inside, self reflect, and really assess where we stand in the situation. Of course, what can we do to help, donate money, research, but also thinking about ways we can make our efforts sustainable going forward and not just acting when this topic is trending. We want to make sure that we really carry our efforts forward and that we continue to work on ourselves.
Yeah. Pause though. I just remembered. So a note to listeners: we are going to put like a little list of links to things that. So if you're confused of what to do or where to start, we'll have some links in the description of this podcast on like what we personally think would be, where to start best, and where you can put your money and efforts into if you can't like go out there and protest.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, and also I agree. I hate cliches, but I'm gonna say it. It's a marathon, not a sprint, because literally this has been it's not a surprise, you know? Like this exact, like the I can't express, like here's an example. The I can't breathe. We've heard those words before a few years ago. Um, so I agree. It's like, yes, it's great that it's trending. It's a lot more people are on the wagon. But we have to like find a plan to stay on the wagon, like because
Mm-hmm.
it's not a one week, 1 month overhaul of this huge system. It's a huge system that was built this way. So it ain't
Mm-hmm.
gonna be quick. So yeah, yes,
Yeah, so
that was
part
what I
of,
added to it.
yeah, that's good. And part of the action is starting to have very transparent conversations around it. And instead of approaching it from a place of denial, like, oh, like I've donated before, I've done what I could, like I'm not a racist, like stop approaching it from that place and really just be super honest and transparent and assess what is my role in all of this? Like what is it really? And what steps do I need to take personally to you know, do my part and make the system better. Like you said, marathon, like step by step by baby step. But yeah, just really being honest with ourselves. I feel like,
Yeah, I agree. I guess I'm gonna fold this into how my week was, but I just talked to my therapist today. And I was telling her about like exactly what you were saying. It starts with the self. Because I was telling her like there were some nights last week I couldn't sleep because I was so consumed by like, am I doing too much or am I doing not enough? Am I doing it for the right motives or am I doing it performatively?
mm-hmm,
Am I blah 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 blah? Like there's hundreds of things you can do and for the wrong reasons or for the right reasons.
mm-hmm,
Um, and so I had to like in the middle of that week, I came into the realization that I had to just sit back and listen, and examine myself. And my acting teacher actually is whom I have to thank for this because she said something like, if you don't clear out your nervous system, like if you don't sort of do a little internal cleaning, you're not going to be open and receptive enough to know what the right quote unquote right action is because you're gonna be so clogged up. And she's like, and that starts with self reflection and self care and taking care of yourself. Again, like calming down your nervous system with whatever tools you have, like meditation, whatever tools you have. And then you'll be able to be like, in a place of receiving and to be like, okay, this is what I'm being called to do right now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not because I'm like showing off that I know all these things or showing off that I'm not a racist. It's because I think it's what the right action is to help at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I agree with you. And that's what I was telling my therapist is that, you know, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm listening when
Mm-hmm.
it feels right to do something. I'm going to do it. And not because I'm like, oh yeah, I called my local reps. Like, what did you do? Like, you know,
Right.
that's not the point, and that's not sustainable either. Like, how long is that going to last if you're
Yeah.
doing it from that motivation, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I have seen numerous posts where there is a kind of a really disappointing shaming that's going on where it's like, oh, to the people out there who've been silent on this, like, I see you, and then now I know that you don't like
I've
so it's like
seen
a lot of
those.
like shaming,
Yeah.
and I just get really disappointed when I see that. Like, I'm very proud of people and happy that people are taking a stand and being very vocal about it, and some of these people going out in the streets, which is great. But at the same time, that doesn't call for shaming people. You don't know what they're doing just because maybe they don't have social media. You know, maybe they're having their own personal conversations or doing other, there's lots of different avenues for which to take action. And
Yeah.
honestly, like, I've said this before, I think even at the beginning of this podcast, you can post the black square all you want. You can post like these quote unquote woke Facebook, so like, you know, statuses. Okay, you posted, great. That took 5 seconds of your time. What are you doing outside of that? You know, so
Right.
shaming other people is not going to further
Yeah,
anything.
because like not staying silent on social media is not in and of itself revealing. They could
Yeah,
just be posting because it's on trend.
yeah, exactly.
But I'm gonna admit that seeing those posts from some of my Facebook friends, I felt super guilty because I'm not a huge social media person. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I should post something useful for people, and so I started posting, and then that's when I came to that realization of like, dude, why are you really posting? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I agree. And the black square thing was so huge. People were like,
Yeah,
it was so huge. I'm like, dude, people just, I don't know. It was like almost overshadowing the point,
yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So at a certain point I was just like, I'm not gonna fucking delete this again. Like just take it. There's information in the description. Just
Yeah.
take what you will. Like I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
leave this fucking Instagram
Yeah.
app.
So I think like this kind of social movement that's happening within our generation where, you know, 10-year-olds have iPads now. Like, if you think about in history, you know, social media wasn't around, like internet wasn't around. Like, how did our ancestors handle social movements? They didn't take to social media or posting on Facebook or Instagram. They used other avenues, and we can see the fruits of their progress. You know,
Mhm.
so it's, yeah, like you said, it's really the time to be honest and straight up with ourselves and really checking our motivations for what we're doing and making sure that we stand with each other. Like, that's the whole point of this. Black lives matter, yes, and it's standing with each other as brothers and sisters. And the point is not to shame people. That's not the point, you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that I don't want to like judge other people. I'm just like, I am speaking for myself too. There have been times in the past where I have posted because I felt like shame to, or because I'm like, oh, I'm being too quiet
Yeah.
about this. I need to put like some woke quote or resource. But then, like, what am I doing to work on myself? You know, and at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's what's really important. So
Right. And I put that Audre Lorde quote on your wall because that's what
yeah, I saw that. I
because
didn't like it yet, but
that's no, because I figured you would like it. But it's the same time that I heard the other stuff from my teacher. This was from a classmate when she said, because she was going through the same thing, and then she was like, well, there's also this Audre Lorde quote, which is like, you know, self-care is a form of rebellion or something. We'll put it in the description because I don't remember.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a form of protest because it's so anti our culture to be like, because we're always like do. Yeah, I said do. Get over yourself. But it's against our culture to be like, let's take a pause, let's take a listen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Right, right.
But Meg, I
Let's get rolling.
no, we're not gonna get rolling. I said how
Oh,
my week was. Can you say how yours?
oh, how your week was? Yes,
I already said mine.
my week was better. Um, so thankfully, peeps are, in terms of resourcing at my work, people are back on my team. You know, my colleague and friend who was out with COVID, she's feeling better now
Oh,
and
okay.
she's back. So I'm really happy that she's in fairly good health now and she's back with us. We have a couple new people who joined our team. So I'm excited for these new people. They're super talented and they have a lot to bring. But of course, that also means I don't have to take on the brunt of, of everything anymore. So we're very like slowly and intentionally starting to divvy things out. So even though my particular project is still crazy, I'm not having to worry so much about these other things, which has been a huge help.
What is that? What would that mean for your schedule this week?
I mean, I've already started to see it this past week. Like I had more time to do like my morning routine, like without rushing and like, oh, I got to sign on exactly at this time. Like I felt okay, like pushing my morning routine a little bit longer because, and we're going to talk about it in this episode, like for more like self-reflection and reading and research, which I really wanted to take time to do that. More time for self-care, less of an urge to be like, I got to work past 6 p.m. to like get this done. Like really just having that one main project on my plate to focus on has been helpful. So in terms of work, because it's like such a big deal in my life, it's going well. It's going better. And then in terms of personal life, I don't want to disclose any specifics because Mo and I strongly believe not to share something until it's done. Like that's just what we believe.
I agree too.
But things are looking hopeful on the like getting our own place front. And so we're very excited about that, me and Mo, just to hopefully have our own place soon. It's in the works, but it's looking hopeful. And yeah, so overall it was a good week. And I'm, again, just whenever like work gets stressful, it just really helps to remind myself, you have a job. You have work and you can work from home, and just reminding myself of those simple gratitudes and blessings. Always, it never fails to turn a shitty day around because the shittiness is usually in my head. And if I just take a pause and like, I'm actually like really blessed right now,
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah. So week has been good.
Yay. Oh my God, I can't wait till you're working regular hours.
Like a regular person.
And not on the weekend.
Yeah, yesterday I only worked like an hour and a half, which is amazing.
Yay.
Yay. Golf clap.
Golf clap. Ew, what is this?
It's like unenthusiastic.
Okay, let's move on. We're just stalling because this topic is it's a big one. And this is probably part one of like it's definitely gonna be part one because it's a very big topic and we do want to bring other perspectives into it. But yeah. Oh, Meg, I'm gonna let you start. It's just
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of voices out there on this topic of, the Black Lives Movement, police brutality against Black people in particular in America. It's not new. What happened to George Floyd was not new. What happened to Breonna was not new, So we thought we could use this space that we have as Filipinos to really go deeper into the Asian perspective side of things, specifically Filipino perspective. It's just an interesting conversation, and you and I have been doing a lot of reading and just like watching and
self-examining.
Yeah, self-examining, because there are I don't know, like I'm trying to like find the right way to say it. Like within our community, the Filipino community, we have lots of instances of racism too, and so it's like within our community, right? That's one of the lenses we can take, but also like our community and our relationship with the Black community, with the people of color. How do we interact with them? How do we talk about them in our like family circles?
Right. We can start. I never could tell what the difference is between micro and macro. Like if you were to go more granular, is that macro?
That's micro. When you're that's micro, and then macro is you're seeing the totality.
Okay, so it would help, I think, to start in the micro. If this is wrong, whatever. To start with a micro, and start with how we grew up, looking at, Black people, because so Meg and I had a conversation about this earlier today. But growing up in the Philippines, I lived there I was born there and lived there for 11 years, and Meg lived there until she was 7. I'm doing the math right.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was exposed to quite a bit of, I mean, obviously I grew up there, so I know the culture. And there are Black people in the Philippines. There are Black people, and there are also, if anyone is, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows someone who's Filipino, and if not, you probably know of us. But it's a huge range of like just skin tones, because we're sort of a melting pot of sorts, in that, you know, we have the indigenous people, and then we have the Spaniards who colonized us for like 300 years, just insane. And then the United States was in there in the mix, the Japanese was in the mix, the Chinese were in the mix. There's a lot of different people, so the range of skin tones, there's a lot. And just growing up, there was something I was aware of. Black people and darker skinned people were just, let's go even more micro in the media. Um, the Black person or the darkest skinned person was relegated to a role of like the jester character, like the sidekick funny person, or the person who people made fun of. Like, you know, I haven't been in the Philippines or consumed Filipino media for a while, but I know that like when I was there, maybe like, what was the last time I was there? I don't know, 5 years, 6 years ago. It was still like that. Maybe a little less obvious now, but um, it's just, that's their role in the media, and the media is a reflection of society. And I was telling Meg this also. It's sort of, if you see who works the service jobs, who are the maids, who are the valets, who are the maintenance people, and then you look at who's upper middle class, who's working in the big finance buildings, who, like, if you look at who are the drivers who open the doors for these business people, you're going to see a very noticeable skin tone difference. And it's like pretty much across the board. I mean, of course, like, someone can always say there are exceptions, but like, you're going to notice it. Just like, if you go to the Philippines, to go to Manila, you're going to see it. And then if you look at, we also have a huge wealth gap there. And there are these little, it's sad, but there are these little communities built around like garbage dumps. And if you look at those people, they're dark skinned. And yeah, I mean, I grew up around that, and it also turned up in the language. It turned up in like how we would refer to darker skinned people, which I'm not gonna say here, but they're just little terms that they're not complimentary at all. They're not complimentary.
Do
But
we
that's what
even do we even have a word for them that's actually has a good connotation?
So there was this, I told you about this half Black, half Filipino celebrity.
Yeah.
Forget her
As
name.
Asia something.
Yeah,
Asia Jackson.
Asia. Oh, let me just click it. While I'm clicking it, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like in total agreement of all of that. And I think the media thing is a great example, you know, and just I'm thinking about like when I was a kid and just the people I remember being around and the conversations I remember hearing. Because when you're a kid, you're like a sponge. You absorb a lot of that stuff and it
Oh
becomes
yeah.
a part of your how you view the world, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like I don't even recall being around a lot of like really I know like we were with our nanny, right? She had a little darker skin, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about like really darker skin people, like the Black Filipinos. I don't recall meeting any
Because,
of
well, here's why. Because when we went to private schools there too, the people we went to school with all could afford to go to those schools, and
them.
those people who could afford it were lighter skinned.
Yeah.
Um, and oh, her name was Asia Jackson. And she
Yeah, Asia
started
Jackson.
this whole social media campaign called Magandang Morena.
Yeah.
And it means beautiful dark skin beauty.
Mm-hmm.
So she's sort of reclaiming it. Oh, and she says in this tweet, she says, Negra was thrown at me every day and it never stopped.
Yeah.
That's one example.
Yeah.
So oh man, I had a comment. Yeah, growing up. Yeah. Yeah, the people we went to school with were all light skinned because again, it coincides with it's like a weird class system. Um
Mm-hmm.
it just all kind of folds in together with each other. So we were just surrounded by lighter skinned people and we were treated well. I don't know if you remember enough because you were so young.
Yeah,
But
I was like really young, like when I was actually in the Philippines, but I
yeah.
remember like moving to the States because that was a big deal and how
Oh yeah,
I
we're gonna
navigated
talk
that.
about how we were treated when we moved here. But I just know that the people who were serving my family, because we had a lot of helpers.
Yeah.
It's a part of the culture in the Philippines to have like someone who's like kind of a nanny but does literally everything, like raises your children, your grandchildren, cleans the house, cooks the food, like nonstop work, wakes up
Mm-hmm.
before everyone and sleeps after everyone, and she has this little room in the house. And I never thought about it because I was like, yay, she's taking
Yeah, same.
making my snack, and then she's greeting me from school, taking my bag. Like I never thought about like, why is there this one person who doesn't look like any of my family or friends, who's darker skinned, who's doing all the work? Like I just never questioned it. And then I would go to school and it's like everyone's like, yeah, lighter skin. I mean, I'm sure
Mhm.
again there are exceptions, but like almost for the most part, um, that's what I was surrounded with, and all the helpers were just darker skinned. Um,
Mhm.
so I just kind of grew up, um, grew up thinking like, dude, it is so hard to admit, but it's subconscious. But I just grew up with this mentality of like, um, I'm of a more privileged position and I deserve it because this is how I look. I mean, I never thought this consciously, but just thinking
Mhm.
back now, it's like I definitely like was comfortable with that system. And I mean, I was young, but I never challenged it until we left and went to America when I was 11 and you were 7. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, any additions to that before we move on to our
No, I mean,
journey
I
across?
think like your insight there is more valuable just because I was like such a young age. I was kind of like just absorbing everything, like, yay, this is how it is. And like I loved our nanny. I didn't now it's
Yeah.
now that we're looking at it in retrospect that I'm realizing all these things, like, oh yeah, that's like a really
Yeah,
weird.
we didn't even ask. Like, of course we weren't.
Yeah.
We're too young. But like, how much
I just
are you paid? Like,
yeah, exactly.
do you get days off? Do you
Yeah.
get vacation? Oh yeah. So there's this. Do you want to talk about Lola Glow and oh,
Yeah.
I want to say their names. Eeks. But yeah, do you want to talk about them? What's the
Lola and Lolo.
because
Yeah.
you talk to them in person like extensively.
Yeah. So Fran, it's still weird saying that. Fran and I
Just
had
do it.
our nanny within our family, and then we had another nanny. We called her Nanai that lived at our grandparents' house. And then at our grandparents' house, there was like another little kind of ramshackle. I don't even know what to call it, like house, like a little
It's a
shacky
house,
type
but it looks
thing.
like a half shack, half.
Yeah, like a half shack, half house that's within our grandparents' property. That we have two other. At the time when I was younger, I thought they were our relatives, but now I don't think they are. They're just like our we. I'm not gonna say their names, but Lola and Lola, and they lived in that little shackly house kind of deal.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I just like I said, like I didn't know any better. I just accepted everything. I'm like, yeah, that's Nana. She like cooks all the food and stuff. And then that's Lola and Lolo, and they take care of their property and they feed the dogs and they take care of everything. Yeah, great. And I just accepted it and didn't really care to question in my head like, who are they? Where do they come from? Are they actually my blood relatives? Like, are they being paid all of that? Because I was
Yeah.
young. And then my husband and I, Mo and I, we actually went back to the Philippines to travel. That was Mo's first time in the Philippines. So this was like a year ago. And we stayed with my grandparents initially. And it was really interesting meeting Lola and Lolo again. Like I hadn't met them like literally since I was a little freaking kid. And so it was just kind of weird. Like they were happy to see me because, you know, they see me as, you know, their family, I think. But it's just like very strange. And then there was one day Mo and I were just having a really transparent conversation with them about their situation, you know, because we noticed they never leave the property. They're always there. They're like doing all the chores. They're cooking and cleaning and feeding the dogs. And so, especially Mo is really curious because he's coming as an outsider to all of this, right? We asked him, like, when was the last time you took some time for yourself? You know, not, it doesn't have to be a full-blown vacation, but when was the last time you left the property to like do something for yourself, to go shopping or take a day trip or just to go to the beach? Like, and they were like, literally couldn't answer that question. And they looked kind of like wistful and sad in their eyes, but also accepting, and that like this is their duty, this is their obligation. And that was their response to us along those lines. They're like, yeah, it would be nice to take a vacation and we really want one, but this is our life. This has always been our life, was to stay at your grandparents' property and look after it. And especially when mama and papa are gone, that's our grandparents, by the way, when mama and papa are gone, who's going to be here to look after everything? It's us. So we have to be here. That was her response. And when we asked papa the same question, like, hey, when was the last time Lola and Lola took a vacay or had some time to themselves, papa said the same thing. And it was very like, not dismissive, but very final. Like, they need to be here. This is their,
Yeah, it's like factual. It's like
yeah, like they're here.
Their role.
They're the watchers of this property. They take care of everything.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Right. I bet there's like no contract, no initial contract that they sign with, like, here are all your benefits. Here are
what's a benefit? Like your benefit is you can stay in this property. Like that's the benefit.
That's the exchange, right? It's like we give you room and board in exchange for you doing all this work, but there's no word on like the stipulations. Like you can't go on. It's just an unspoken rule that people have accepted there. So I just want to no, go ahead. No, you're not done. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm done. I'm just gonna say, like, that's a peek into our personal family life, and it's kind of, I'm only realizing all of this in retrospect now. And
right,
I
because
don't know how to feel about it, because it's like, oh my gosh, we had so many helpers, I didn't even realize it. Like,
because when you move to America, it's not part of the culture here to have helpers.
Yeah.
And so then you look back and it's like, why did we have people who were not part of the family always there helping us, and then we move here and we have to do everything ourselves? Yeah. It sounds so spoiled, but that's honestly how we grew up.
Yeah. And then the thing is, when like, this is like the internal dialogue, and I may sound shameful right now, but I thought that coming from the Philippines already, like me being of Filipino descent and me coming to America from the Philippines, I didn't think I was like that privileged, really. I'm like, look at me. I'm coming from like a poor neighborhood in the Philippines. Like, and, like completely like forgetting the fact that I did have a nanny. You know what I mean?
And we weren't poor.
Yeah, we weren't poor, but I'm just saying, like our country is technically a third world country, right? In many aspects. Yeah. So I'm like, look at me. I came from this third world country and like, I don't have it all together. Like, what are you talking about that?
But it's like us immigrating to here, and then someone who's like, I don't know, a struggling nurse from a lower rung of class coming to the States is way different. It's a way different experience.
Yeah.
Like we came in here to this country already, like dad was already like part of the Air Force, like we already had family in America, North America. Yeah, we already had connections. We were just very privileged. We were just very lucky. So what was our point with that story?
Just like looking at this system, this like caste system that is in our family. It's like in our actual family, and we're only just
not now. I mean, I've thought about it.
We've known about it, yeah, but we're really like reflecting on it in light of the current situation around.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like similar to here where a lot of white people are getting an awakening of like, I've been comfortable in this system that's built to serve us
Mm-hmm.
because it's just what I know and I'm comfortable and it helps me live my life. And I don't get faced like the regular Joe American, white American isn't regularly faced with like seeing Black people get killed
Mm-hmm.
until recently with social media and video. And so they're like, why? I mean, they should question it. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but that's not, and then again, it's not parallel, but we were being served by the system that was built to serve us, the upper
Mm-hmm.
class, lighter skinned people. And we were just comfortable and that's how we were raised. And we didn't
Mm-hmm.
question it until we were pulled out of that system into something else. And we're like, oh, like people here aren't here to serve us. Like
Yeah.
what? Um,
Yeah. And you can see
yeah.
this dynamic of skin color in other countries too, I'm sure. We're not the only ones, a lot of Asian countries. And
Yeah.
um, I have a I have friends and acquaintances from different countries and cultures, but just as a couple examples, I have a friend, maybe she'll listen to this. I have a friend from Brazil who is lighter skinned. I mean, she could even almost pass for white, I think.
Mhm.
And she has talked about experiencing those benefits of having a lighter skin color in Brazil.
Yeah.
And, you know, the voices of those people who are darker skinned and Black
Mhm.
just to put it simply, not having the same access to the same things as the lighter skinned Brazilians. And my husband, Mo, a Moroccan in Morocco, they experience this dynamic too with the, you know, darker skinned people and Black people just
Mhm.
not being seen or treated the same as Moroccans of lighter skin color. So that's just a couple examples that I'm sure is happening in a lot of countries to some degree or other.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to show the influence of like England and America on
Yeah.
like all the places that they conquered. And Spain. I mean, all the European countries who like tried to colonize. I'm not a history major, but all the colonies, it put a lot of influence on us. Like the Spaniards were white. And so the mixed, we even have words for it still, mestiza. Like
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's what we are. We're mestiza because we're lighter skinned. We're like a mix of like a little bit of white and a little bit like a little bit of lighter skin, and a little bit of the Filipino darker skin. That's our word for it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some listener who's Filipino, if I'm wrong, correct me.
No, I think you're
Um,
right.
yeah. Oh, also, I just want to point out before we move further, I'm we're speaking in generalizations because it's easier, but of course, not all people who are upper class are all lighter skin. I'm just there. Of course, there are exceptions. I'm just saying majority. It
Mm-hmm.
could have changed too. I haven't been there in a while. But yeah, I just want to point out to people, I'm not saying all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so don't
I think that's a disclaimer for
attack
like
us.
a lot of what we're talking about.
Right, that's a disclaimer, guys. So it's just gonna take 10 hours if we just like kept
Disclaim everything that we
disclaim
say.
everything. So just across the board, that's our
Yeah.
disclaimer. Um, but on that note, of like it's happening in other Asian cultures too. Skin whitening creams. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of these are dangerous, but
That's a
that's
big
like
one.
oh my God, it's a huge industry in the Philippines. It's huge. Like the billboards, the commercials, it's just all these like really beautiful, like light skinned celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones advertising these. And the message, these sort of the subtextual message that when I watch it, I get is like, look at where I got because of my light skin, all because of this
Right.
product. If you get to this, you can get to this, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
My status.
Mm-hmm. A
And
lot of Asian countries, especially in Korea where I just live, like, oh my gosh, that's very, very
yeah,
big industry there too.
right. I mean, that also makes sense of why people in the sun use umbrellas. No
Yeah.
touch of
Only Asians do that. I just realized that.
no, but it kind of carried over to us because like I
Yeah.
don't like tanning. Like when I moved here, I was like, why is everyone tanning?
Yeah, that's like an American thing. I'm like, that is
It's
not
not
how
even
we.
America thing, it's a white person thing. It's like
Yeah. Interesting, huh?
Yeah, it is interesting. Any digression. I hate the sun. I'm like, all the time, all my white friends are like, oh my God, sun, get
That's like
out.
me
And I'm
too.
like, yeah, I'll go out. I'll go in the shade. Like, what's wrong with you? It's also
Yeah.
disgusting and sweaty. Like, I want to go.
Yeah. You know, an interesting note on that, by the time that Mo and I got to Mama and Papa's house, everyone was talking about how tan I was, but like with an undertone of like, oh, why'd you do that to yourself? Like they
Yeah,
didn't say
it's not like, oh, you look so great because you're so tan.
yeah.
It's more like, why are
It's
you
like
so
they were
dark?
like, Meg, why? Yeah, exactly. Why are you so dark? And it was like almost confusion. I'm like, because we've been traveling.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that
isn't
was
that interesting? Isn't
interesting.
that interesting?
Yeah.
Um, uh, where do we go from here? I guess so. We moved to the States. And see, the other thing that this sort of culture that we grew up in did to our brains is, well, at least to my brain. I'm speaking for myself. I'm
And
holding
probably for me too. Like
I'm holding myself to this. I'm being honest. I kind of viewed myself almost as a white person because I was like lighter skin, and Filipinos love American culture.
yeah.
Well, white American culture. They love it.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good distinction, white American culture. I don't
they
really see Filipinos like
like Black American culture in terms of like, oh, Michael Jordan basketball is huge, or like
yeah.
Jay-Z, but that's it.
But they don't try to copy it, is what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
when you watch Filipino media, they're copying the white American or the white
right.
the yeah.
Unless you're like a musician there, or like a
Yeah.
hip hop or an R&B, and you're probably gonna copy like how they dress and how they move and talk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in terms of culture, like, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so when I moved here, I was like, oh, and we spoke. That's the other thing we didn't even discuss is like access to getting taught English.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, the lighter skinned upper class Filipinos can speak English really well. That's why when we moved here, we weren't really that hampered. We didn't have a huge language barrier because we could speak English well already.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you just go to like the more impoverished neighborhoods, you're barely going to find people speaking English.
Yeah,
It's just such
that's
a
true.
stark difference. So when I moved here, I was like, yeah, I can fit in because like,
Mm-hmm.
like, white. No, I mean, I didn't think that, but I was just like, this is gonna be fine.
NBD.
NPT.
Yeah.
But no, of course there were differences. We're still people of color. Like no one's
Yeah.
gonna be like, yeah, you're white. Um,
But we found ourselves in that pocket of comfort where we're a minority, yes, but we do have lighter skin. That's just a fact of it. So we're not gonna experience the same
yeah,
like shit that happens to people with darker skin in America.
right.
That's a fact.
We're like we were talking about this earlier. A lot of people think we're either mixed or we're like. I mean, I've never gotten the white thing. Although some people were like questioning. They're like, "Are you white? Are you
Yeah, like really like looking
Asian?"
at you. What
But
are you?
yeah. Or I get that a lot. What are you?
What are
Which is
you?
another like microaggressive thing. It's like
It is.
they're like, "What are you?" And then they name like 10 Asian countries in a row, and I'm like, "Can you just
Ask
ask?"
me.
Like, just, but yeah, a lot of people think we're mixed. We're like half.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people in the Philippines are mixed, but they're like, "Oh, you're half white." People assume we're half white. And then, oh, here's another thing. It's like, so I moved here when I was 11. You moved here when you were 7, and our English is pretty good. And so people are like, oh, really? You moved here at that age? Your English is so good. And I'm like, thanks. Um, like we speak English there.
For me, I took it a step further. I really, and I'm again realizing this in retrospect, I really was excited to just ditch the whole Tagalog thing. And I did not want to call
Yeah,
any attention to the fact that
yeah.
like
And the
Tagalog was my
and you
first
were saying when
language.
you brought food like Filipino food for
Yeah.
lunch.
So I was like in second grade at the time, and occasionally I would bring Filipino foods to school, and I like did not want anyone noticing or seeing it or asking about it.
Oh my god, dude, this happened to me okay, so you know how spam is such a huge thing in the Philippines because
Yeah.
the states colonized us and then they left this lasting what do you call it? Whatever.
Legacy.
Legacy of spam, which is still huge in the Philippines. It's still huge in Hawaii. But anyway, and so I loved it. I like we grew up eating spam. Like it's part of Filipino culture. It's not even America anymore. It's like a very intrinsic part of Filipino culture. So I would bring it to work. Like what was this? Like 7, 8 years ago. I was like in my early 20s. And my coworkers would make fun of me to the point where I was like, I can't even enjoy this part of my culture at work
Yeah.
because people are like, oh my God, ew, there's Fran, there's spam. Haha. And then when I'm not eating spam, they're like, oh, where's your spam? I'm
That's
like,
so
this
mean.
is, I know at first I would be like, haha, they're joking. I'm going to laugh it off. But it's like, that's really hurtful. I I never called them out on it because again, I think this is what the point we're trying to get to is that we subconsciously we wanted to keep enjoying that privilege of being
Exactly.
light skinned, and we're like,
Yeah.
let's enjoy being comfortable being around white people because they kind of think we're kind of white.
Yeah.
So let's just not, you know.
That's all of this in a nutshell. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. This is all
exactly.
what we're talking about in a nutshell. It's like we found this pocket of like 80% of the time people are like, oh, they're like mostly white. Like let's treat them like they're white. And then
Yeah.
except for those certain parts like the spam or like trying to guess who we are or
We're
like,
like slivers of our of where we really come from, of like who we really are come through. And then
yeah.
when those slivers come out and then like and if they take notice of it, then we're at
Oh
risk of yeah. But that's
here's another one where that little I call it passing, but I mean it's not really passing because it's different. It's kind of passing. We're passing as white sometimes.
yeah.
Well, at least I know I do it and I try I try to like call myself out when I do it. But here's one where it's like that tactic doesn't work because I'm Asian. I consider myself Asian. So when I see a fellow Asian, like when I went to grad school in England, there were a couple Asians in my class and I would glommed onto them because I'm like fellow fucking Asians. Like let's hang out. Um, there's someone from China, someone from Hong Kong, and I really like loved them. Like I felt
Mm-hmm.
a kinship with them amongst the sea of mostly white people. And my roommate, she made little jokes. She was just joking. She was just joking, but she would say stuff about like how like the Asians like all know each other. Actually, that's not even the first time I got that. I got that like got that a couple times from a lot of from other people, other friends, where they were like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, man, you Asians just keep finding each other."
Yeah. I heard that a lot in my younger schooling days.
Right. It's like so
It's like
like
so
you white people keep not well, she's not white, but I'm just saying it's like I got it from a mixture of people, but it's like white people keep finding each other. Like
yeah.
I don't know what.
I remember like snapping at someone in seventh grade because I was sitting next to my Chinese classmate, and they're like, "Oh, like did you guys know each other from somewhere?" And then I literally like got so fucking riled up. I'm like, "Do you all know each other from somewhere?" And he was like, "Whoa!" And he's like, "It's not the same." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. You both are white." And he like didn't know what to say.
Dude,
I was
I
so
know this
mad.
is not about like this is about Black Lives Matter, but just one last thing. Well, I guess we're talking about like being comfortable, trying to be comfortable in a system, but we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Here's another one. This happened so recently, but a couple times at work, like a couple of coworkers like mix me up with
That's like
another
so
Asian
offensive.
woman. And I mean they're good people. I'm not gonna be like you racist. But it's like I mean it's like we're different people. We look very different. Or like sometimes I would be in a meeting. I can't remember when this happened, but it's happened multiple times. And there would be one other Asian woman in the group or something, and they would call me the other Asian person's name and vice versa. And
That's
I
so
right now
offensive.
I'm like not angry, but I'm just like can you differentiate between two human beings?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So no matter how subconsciously hard we tried to stay within that pocket of like mostly white and we're gonna be fine,
Mm-hmm.
we're this is America is not, it's a melting pot, but it's not, it's still problematic. Like we're
Yeah.
never going to be not people of color, no matter how
Yeah.
subconsciously we try to be like, let's just sneak on by, let's just like try to not make waves and maybe they won't notice, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it's something we have to come to terms with. Like we have to be honest with ourselves. um
Mm-hmm.
by the way, we need to take a break, but do you have anything last
Yeah.
to add?
Um, yeah. I really enjoy this conversation. We can go a million years about it, but just to kind of sum it up and tie it back to the Black Lives Matter movement, like if I was to really sit down, take out pen and paper and list all of the like quote unquote racist things against me, like microaggressions included, like mixing me up with another Asian person, that kind of thing, I would never write on the list, felt my life to be threatened, felt my
Yeah.
life to be endangered at any point, and I think that's what we're trying to drive towards here is like, yes, we are minorities. We do experience microaggressions, that's just a fact of life, but part of our privilege, right, is we will never, I have never and probably will never, low percentage, that we will be pulled over for our skin color, or that we
Yeah.
can't go grocery shopping or can't go jogging around the block and someone will stop us and kill us because of that. I
Yeah.
don't really foresee that. It's not in my brain at all that will ever happen to me. And that's my
Yeah.
privilege.
And when we go into a store, we just go into a store. No one's like
Right.
keeping an eye on us because we might be criminals.
Exactly.
So I guess
That's a strictly Black person thing
yeah,
that's happening
it's a
right now.
strictly Black person thing.
Yeah.
Um, but what was I gonna say? No, that's something I do want to kind of discuss more, but after this break.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna. What is that? No. I don't accept that noise. Okay, we're gonna pause it one quick sec. Okay, guys, we're back. We just had a little.
Welcome to Filipino house.
We had a little. Yeah, that's in Filipino houses. Locks are not a thing. Like privacy. What is that?
Boundaries are not.
Boundaries.
Knocking on the
What is
door. What
that
is
word?
that?
Oh, you're recording something? Well, I need to get something. So, okay. Anyway, we're moving on to
So funny.
our favorite segment. Not moving on, we're taking a break with this segment called What We're Loving This Week. And Meg, you can start.
Okay, so I always talk about food or movies. So I'm gonna like step away from that. I still have food to talk about, but I'll do that second just to switch things up. So the first one I want to talk about that I'm loving this week, and I just started reading it, is this book called Now Discover Your Strengths. Oh, I probably can't hear me, sorry. Now Discover Your Strengths, the revolutionary Gallup program that shows you how to develop your unique talents and strengths. And yeah, it's by Dawn Clifton, and here's the book. Okay, so at my work, my boss has started an internal book club, which I think is a great idea because I feel like it shouldn't just be all about work, work, work. It's important to have professional development too. And this is one of his ideas, to have that professional development and fold it into our weekly meetings and stand-ups. And so this book in particular, basically the premise of it is, in schools and just in life in general and in the workplace, we focus so much on people's weaknesses, and we call them areas of growth, right? Like, oh, what are your areas of, like, basically areas of growth is what are you suck at? What can you get better at?
Yeah, I know. I like how they use that euphemism.
Areas of growth.
Areas of
And
growth.
so basically this book is just flipping that totally upside down and saying, yo, we need to focus 100% on people's strengths because that is the biggest room of growth for them, really. And yeah, like here on the tab, it says, many people have little sense of their talents and strengths, much less the ability to build their lives around them. Instead, they are raised and taught to become experts in their weaknesses and spend their lives trying to fix them while their strengths lie dormant. So that's essentially what it's all about, like tapping into your strengths, really uncovering and putting a label into what those are. And most of you guys are probably familiar with the Myers-Briggs test, and that's kind of what this reminds me of.
Yes.
But it's not the Myers-Briggs. It's called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And within the book, there's a link to take the assessment online. And there's like 32 strengths that they uncovered from like hundreds and hundreds of interviews with successful people. They found like 32 common traits across all of them. So for example, my boss, one of his strengths is empathy. And like, so now that he knows that's his strength, he tries to leverage that in his job as a program manager, you know? Whereas someone else might be more strategic. So like, that's twofold, right? If you know your strengths, you can use it to leverage and optimize your work, but also how you work with other people. And my manager, like if he knows his employees' strengths, he can pair people up accordingly so that they compensate for each other, that kind of thing. So I think it's really, I've only just like scratched the surface. I've just read the intro and part of chapter 1, but I think the philosophy behind it is interesting. And I really do agree that as a society, we do focus on the deficits and the weaknesses in every facet of life. Like if you take medicine, like how do we learn about diseases? We look at the symptoms, like what goes wrong. We always look at what goes wrong in order to figure out what's right. So they're saying, why don't we reverse that? Let's really look at the strengths. So in a nutshell, really
That's
enjoying this so
interesting.
far.
I'd be interested to like follow up with you on that. Like,
yeah, you should take the assessment.
Yeah, you have to send me the link.
I can even send you this book when I'm done reading it. Like,
I'm in 3 book clubs, so take your time.
I
was I gonna say that probably works with hiring too, right? If like
exactly, changing your approach to hiring, changing the questions that you ask.
Yeah.
That kind of
that's
thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do wonder. Like I have wondered about that. It's like people are so focused on. I mean, there is a benefit to, you know, not fixing, but like developing your areas of growth. But no one ever goes like, but I have this strength, and it's like, why not use it? So I guess,
So they're not completely tabling the fact that, you know, it's important to recognize your weaknesses or areas of growth, but they're saying not enough emphasis is being put on our strengths. And so that's what needs to change in ourselves and in workplaces. And then my second thing that I'm loving is just a combo of ingredients that's been my go-to like quick meal, which I just had today. And this is like totally random, but I've been really loving kale and tofu and kimchi together. It's like really weird, but I just make a little salad for myself. I stir fry the kale and tofu a little bit with like really simple seasoning. And then I put the kimchi and it's like super simple. It's really fast to make and it's really filling and good.
Wait, soul kimchi, right?
Yeah. Soul kimchi. And I need to buy more because I just finished it. But
that sounds so good.
It's really good. It's simple.
I mean,
and it makes me eat kale. I've been lightly stir frying kale recently.
Dude,
I know you can make it a salad, but I've really been enjoying frying it.
No, I love stir fried kale. I think raw kale, even if you massage it, it's okay, but like is overrated. Fucking stir fry that, man. Fucking stir fry it. A little oil never harmed anyone.
Yeah. So
okay,
really good.
Cool.
Okay.
My 2 things. I'll be quick about it. Rami.
Yay.
2nd season is here. And it's so good. It's a challenging yet entertaining watch. Especially if you're not Muslim in America. It's really eye-opening. It's really eye-opening. I just like watching stuff like that because I'm not exposed to it all the time. So and I recommend it for everyone, especially with the Islamophobia that's happening in this America. Also, Rami's just great. Is he single? Whatever. And the second, since we're doing Black Lives Matter, I mean, I could recommend so many movies. I love movies, but I recently watched Just Mercy by the same director of Short Term 12, one of my favorite movies. His name's Destin Daniel Cretton, and it stars Michael B. Jordan in the role of this really famous lawyer who is now a criminal justice activist. He's renowned. He was in the documentary 13th by Ava DuVernay. And it's Brian Stevenson's story of like after he graduated from Harvard, he moved to Alabama because there's a problem with law enforcement everywhere. But this was like in the late 80s. There was a huge problem there of like people incarcerating mainly Black men for crimes they didn't commit without barely any evidence. And he defends a bunch of different, he just goes there and starts like a pro bono business, like just like because he was so passionate about it. He could be doing so many things. Like his parents were like, why are you doing this? Like, you have a degree from Harvard, go do something else. He's like, no, this is what I'm called to do. And one of the highlights, Jamie Foxx plays one of the people he defends, Walter McMillan. Oh, fucking that movie, the performances. The only like kind of sour note, I love her. I love Brie Larson. Like, I love me some Brie Larson, but she plays the kind of white female supporter. I'm like, I guess she was a real person in real life, but I'm just like, do we need her? Like, you just need the white person to
Do we need you
support.
right now?
No, it wasn't a fully fleshed out, so it felt like, oh, we also need a white person just to support this side, so not all the white people are bad. Probably not. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, but that's how it came across, is what you're saying.
That's how I came across. Maybe if she was fully fleshed out, but she was great in the little role that she got. But yeah, Michael B. Jordan, fucking that performance. People are like, oh, he's so hot, but like, no, this performance.
He is though.
No, he is. They found a way to take his shirt off, but in a horrible way. Like, something happened horribly. I'm not going to reveal it, that he had to strip down. Mm-hmm. Just everyone watch it. It was it's a very straightforward movie, almost documentary like, because it just wanted to tell the story and it needs to be seen. And it's really great acting across the board, except for the guy playing the wait, is he the DA? Whatever. Yeah, the DA, who's like played by this British actor who's funny in comedies, but way over the top. And his accent was way over the top. I'm like, calm down. Like, what are you? Were you in an SNL skit? Like, but other than that, really great. I'm going to stop blathering and we're going to take this time to move back to the convo.
Yay.
Okay. What's happening? Where were we? Okay. So we were saying we wanted to redirect it back to the Black Lives Matter, but it's not our place to speak about it. It's not our movement. We're we should be helpers in the movement, but it's not our platform to be like, this is but I
guess we want to call to action like our fellow Asians.
Yeah, I guess the call to action for our fellow Asians. I think you were starting to bring it up. Initially you were going to go back to self-reflection, really just calling your fucking self out. I'm including myself in this, to challenge like not just how you grew up looking at Black people, but I'm not going to lie, I've bought like, here, I'm going to be honest. It's very recently that I saw, like, for example, a group of Black like high schoolers innocently hanging around, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to walk past them. But they're not going to do anything. So I made myself walk past them and nothing happened. Surprise, surprise.
I do that all the time. Like, instinctively, and I can't control it because it's such an ingrained part of me, and I hate myself after. I'm like, why? Like, I automatically tense up when especially if I'm alone, like on public transportation or like if Mo's not with me or another guy or someone else, I just automatically tense up when I'm in a public place, or especially secluded with a Black person or multiple Black people. I hate it. I hate that that's my instinctive reaction.
Right. But I think we should be, that's what we're saying. We should be feeling uncomfortable that's our reaction. And we should be like, why are we feeling this way? And what can we do to short circuit that thinking that we sort of were raised with? And I feel like before this, I've been sort of working on this, but not really intentionally. I think we just need to be intentional with really pinpointing that type of thinking. Because I feel like I'm, again, speaking for myself, but you can chime in too. I've been comfortable not being the minority that's looked at as a criminal. Been comfortable with that. Been like, okay, then it's mainly not my problem.
Mhm.
Um,
It's a black white thing when
it's
it's
a
not.
black, that's the thing, right? So Hassan Minaj has this video about it, but he made the point of like, we always, Asians and other non-black minorities are like, oh, it's a black white thing. It's not a black white thing. We're
Mhm.
benefiting. Asians are benefiting from this system. It's like a
Yeah.
tiered system. And the civil rights movement, the black people fought for our right to be able to come here to this land.
Mhm.
And the least we can, the very least we can do is to start with that. And just to challenge our own thinking and then speak out when we're seeing our other family members, our other fellow Asian friends or Asian coworkers, whoever, some random Asian on the street or the person who owns the store, and call them out when this stuff is happening is the next step.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. There's just so many things that I've just been comfortable with, and I've been like, yeah, subconsciously being like black white thing.
Mhm. Yeah. As a literal example, like if we go back and revisit the George Floyd video, which was uncomfortable for many
Oh
of us, but
yeah,
that's the point, right? When you're watching it, you're just uncomfortable. You're not actually experiencing it on a daily systemic basis. And if you recall, the second police officer that was that guy's partner was an Asian. And what was he doing? He was just standing there. So if
yeah,
you want a very literal metaphor of what's happening right now is we are literally on the sidelines and we need to get off of the sidelines and we need to take action. And again, it doesn't have to be on a extreme, like go out in the streets and riot and protest, which is great if that's what you're doing. But
yeah,
as I said in the beginning of the episode, there are many ways to take action, beginning with self-reflection, being honest with yourself, because I personally believe that those day-to-day interactions that we have with our friends, with our coworkers, with people that we meet on public transportation, those matter more because those are daily, like everyday occurrences. And
yeah,
that in repetition, right,
yeah.
is what it takes to overturn something that's systemic. Because a
Right.
protest can end in a day or in a week. And then when it's over, what happens? Are you going to continue to have those
Yeah,
confrontations
we
with
saw that
people?
with like Ferguson. We saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And not just, I mean, it's about Black lives, right? But for a lot of these issues, it's just trending for a while. We go out and we speak up, and then it stops. What happens then? You know,
Yeah.
so let's not be like that police officer who's standing there and not doing anything, or the people in the sidelines filming with their phones. Let's not be those people anymore. That's really, step one, self-reflect, and step two, ask yourself, what can I do to really make a change? The next time that I overhear a racist remark, or the next time that I pass by a group of Black people and I feel myself tense up, like
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to actively do, or how am I going to you used a good word before, but short circuit, I think you said, that
Short circuit.
that
Yeah.
instinct, those impulses inside me to be actively anti-racist. And that's like the call
Right.
to action here for everyone.
Right. And I think the third thing is to, we said this at the top, listen. And listening can
Mm-hmm.
include listening to what your black friends say, reading a lot. How to be, so I just recently got this book. It's trending. I'm sorry that I bought into a trending thing, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's called How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. And it's a book because it's called How to Be Anti-Racist because it's work. You
Mm-hmm.
it's not enough to be like, I'm not racist. That's similar to standing on the sidelines. Like
Exactly.
Asians, as like we're speaking to our fellow Asians here, including ourselves, we need to work on how to be anti-racist. And listening can include listening to reading black voices saying like, here's what you can do day to day to not to be an anti-racist, to actively
Mm-hmm.
be anti-racist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing you can do. Literally, you can even go online, go to articles. There's so many great black writers and journalists out there, but literally they tell you, like, they shouldn't need to tell us, they shouldn't need
Yeah.
to tell us, but it's like out there. Just fucking use your fingers. I'm talking to myself too. Use your fingers and type it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other step. um
It's
Yeah, it's just
basically getting out of our comfort zones, getting out of this complacency. It's not enough to sympathize. Like,
yeah.
I feel like we sympathize because, we're also minorities. And so we have that like low level of sympathy, like, oh, look at that. But let's get out of that, like, because like we're so comfortable and like,
We're
oh,
so comfortable.
we're reaping the benefits because our skin tone is lighter. And that's been like our whole conversation throughout this whole episode. We are reaping the benefits.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And it's time to snap out of that.
Totally.
Whatever that means to you. It's going to look different for everyone, but that's what we're encouraging people to do. That's what we're actively trying to do. Start to have those conversations, give your Black friends and acquaintances space to talk. It's not about you. Don't make assumptions about them. It's about,
and also don't ask them to explain stuff to you. If you're confused, fucking look it up. It's
exactly
all up there. Like, they're exhausted, so don't make them do extra work, okay?
Yeah.
That's the other thing we can do. Don't make them do extra work. They're already working so hard.
Yep.
To live. Yeah, that's basically everyone watch that Hassan Minaj video.
Yeah.
You'll
add the link, right?
I will add it to the description below. It's called Hassan Minaj's We Cannot Stay Silent. Yeah, it'll jolt you. Watch it first thing in the morning. It'll wake you up. Wake you right the fuck up. Yeah, I think
just throw that F-bomb in there.
Whatever, we curse in this podcast. Should we bleep it out? I don't know.
No, we don't bleep nothing out.
Okay, calm down. I think this is definitely, I have more to say on this, but this is what we're gonna say for now.
Yeah.
Okay, quote of the day. We're gonna move on to quote of the day.
So we're gonna go back to our old friend, Spitch Awakening.
Okay, long form spiritual awakening. Short form Spitch
Awakening.
Spitch.
And I think it's short and sweet today. I think it is actually relevant to what we're talking about. So the person is anonymous. Anonymous says, realization is simply to give birth to something within oneself. Again, realization is simply to give birth to something within oneself.
You know what? This might not be what anonymous meant when they said that, but I think it could also mean give birth. It's already in you to change.
Yeah.
Just gotta let it happen. You just gotta work on letting it happen. And something else has to die for something to get reborn.
Yeah.
So what needs to, I didn't come up with that. So don't be like, whoa, Fran is a genius. But something has to die, aka your old way of thinking, for something else to be born. And dying is uncomfortable, people. It's going to be uncomfortable. And if you're comfortable doing any of this, then you're not doing it right. I'm just going to say that right now. You gotta be super.
Yeah. And if you want to be super literal, I mean, birth is a very painful process.
Yes,
it's not an overnight process. They call it labor for a reason. So like oftentimes realization is painful and it's uncomfortable. And that's what we're talking about today, realizing those parts of yourself that you need to educate yourself on and grow. It's not comfortable to be like, oh, I tense up around Black people. I kind of disgusted when I say that, but it's true. And that's the kind of honesty and self-reflection that's needed in order to know how to properly act going forward. So yeah, anonymous.
Yeah. Hey, yay. Okay, so all the
We're so graceful. Like, it's really awesome.
Okay, shut up. So all the things, videos, links, etc., resources we mentioned in this podcast, we're going to put in the description below. But also Google it yourself if if you want something else. But Meg, where can they find us on Instagram?
So on Instagram, why are you laughing? On Instagram, our handle is @DeepConvosPod. If you're a longtime listener, you will know we do not add the cast.
By a long time, like 6-week listener.
If you are a 6-week listener. You'll know this already. Yeah. So
And
please follow us if you want to reach us personally. I'm meg.sales.14. Fran is Fran Sales.
yep, it's easy
That's
peasy.
it. Short and simple. There's no
So if you
dots.
want to write us a long
Oh
form,
my gosh, the Gmail.
anything long form, or you want to complain about certain facts that we didn't say right in this episode, fucking email us because we want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm so sorry for all the
She's
cuss.
passionate, guys.
I almost said my personal email. I was like, Francesca. No, deep convos podcast at gmail.com.
So here's an easy way to remember what has the cast and what doesn't. Gmail and email is like if you have something long to say. So then you use podcast. Okay.
Yeah. Good job.
There you go.
There you go. This little tidbit for the day. All right, everyone. It was really illuminating to speak about this today, and thank you for listening.
And we really want this to be a conversation. So if you have anything else
Please.
to add that you want us to probe deeper into part 2 of this, which we do want to do in part 2, please let us know. And hoping you're well and you're safe. Again, like I almost forgot there's still a pandemic going on. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself. You're wearing your mask, you're social distancing.
Stay safe out there if you're protesting.
Yeah, you're being considerate of your fellow humans, right? Don't forget that we still have to look out after each other and stay safe amidst all of this. So
exactly. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.